Tony Stewart is known for not filtering his words. But weeks after the tragic passing of Kyle Busch, his unfiltered words at an NHRA event in Bristol sparked a massive divide in the NASCAR community. While the world was posting tributes and sharing memories, Stewart wasn't angry at Kyle. He was angry at the fans. He is now facing calls to apologize. But to understand Stewart's anger, you have to look at the heartbreaking promise Kyle's wife, Samantha, made in his final moments. Because Stewart's blunt words and Samantha's quiet grief actually tell the exact same story about the real Kyle Busch. And by the time the story is finished, you are going to see both of them very differently than you do right now. If this kind of deep, honest NASCAR storytelling is what you are here for, hit that like button and subscribe right now. It helps more than you know. Stewart's first reaction to Kyle's passing was not anger. It was grief, and it was immediate. On May 22nd, one day after Kyle's death, Stewart posted a tribute he admitted was hard to write. He took his time, and when the words finally came, they focused on something specific, not just Kyle's talent, but the bond they built as teammates at Joe Gibbs Racing in 2008. Stewart wrote that Kyle was a fierce competitor, strong-willed, and confident, not only in his ability behind the wheel, but in his opinions. He acknowledged they didn't always see eye to eye early on, but said clearly, "He pushed me to be better." It was easy to see that Kyle was going to be a future champion. That tribute felt honest. It felt earned. It acknowledged the friction between two famously strong personalities without softening it, and it honored the man anyway. People who had spent years criticizing both drivers stopped and read it. For a brief moment, that was the story. Tony Stewart, former teammate, paying his respects with words that cost him something to write. Then came Bristol, and everything changed. A few weeks later, Stewart was at Bristol Dragway for the NHRA Thunder Valley Nationals, where he competes as a top fuel dragster driver. A reporter asked him about Kyle Busch's legacy. It was a straightforward question, the kind that usually produces a polished, rehearsed answer about championships and talent and impact on the sport. Stewart did not give a polished answer. The grief had morphed into something much sharper, and what came out was direct, unfiltered, and impossible to ignore. Stewart said, "The biggest thing that's pissed me off the most is that now everybody wants to talk about how he was as a person. Outside of that, all they wanted to do was just judge what they saw on TV. He did not stop there. That's the way every one of us are judged by what they see on TV, and then once you die, then they want to talk about how good a person you were." And then came the line that truly ignited the internet. The comment that split the NASCAR fan base directly down the middle and launched thousands of responses within hours. "They're the assholes for not taking the time to learn him and accept him for who he was back then. Wait till the guy dies and all of a sudden they care." He was not backing down. Not one word. And now the calls for a public apology are growing louder by the day. But here is what those calls are missing. And this is the part of the story that reframes everything. The reaction online divided almost immediately into two distinct camps. The first group defended the fans, and their argument was simple and, in many ways, genuinely difficult to dismiss. Ordinary people only have access to what is broadcast. They do not share paddocks or haulers or team dinners with these drivers. They see the aggressive moves on track. They see the post-race confrontations, the radio outbursts, the pointed fingers, and the victory burnouts. That is the product. That is what NASCAR puts in front of millions of people every single weekend. One fan put it bluntly, "All you privileged people and competitors got to know him. Getting to see you on TV is what we get to see. So put that in your pipe and smoke it." Others took direct aim at Stewart personally. Given his own well-documented history of on-track incidents and outbursts throughout his career, the irony of Smoke lecturing anyone about emotional restraint was not lost on them. The anger management references came quickly and came in volume. But the second group stood firmly behind Stewart, and their argument carried real weight. As one fan observed, one thing racing fans don't do a good job of is appreciating greatness as it is happening. Some pointed to how differently legends like Jeff Gordon and Dale Earnhardt were treated during their careers. The fan base seemed to recognize in real time that they were witnessing something historic. That same recognition, many argued, never truly extended to Kyle Busch during his career, despite 2 Cup Series championships and 60 Cup wins that place him firmly among the greatest to ever compete in the sport. However, the most insightful reaction came from a third group entirely. One fan cut right to the heart of it. He has a point. But the problem is his friends weren't telling anyone how great he was while he was alive. That observation does not fully side with Stewart, and it does not fully side against him. It simply points out that if Kyle's inner circle, people like Stewart, who clearly admired him, had spoken publicly about the man behind the helmet more often during his career, the gap Stewart is now furious about might not exist at all. Which raises one critical and uncomfortable question. If they knew the real Kyle Busch, why didn't they show the world sooner? The answer, it turns out, lives with his family. And what they have shared in the weeks since his passing is more revealing than anything broadcast on race day ever was. On June 10th, Samantha Busch posted on Instagram for one of the first times since Kyle's death. She revealed something deeply personal, a promise she made to Kyle in the hospital before he died. In the hospital, I made Kyle a promise. I promised him that I would do everything I could to help our children pursue their dreams no matter what. For their son Brexton, 11, that dream is racing. It wasn't a dream Kyle chose for him. It was something they shared, she wrote. They spent countless hours talking about race cars, working together, dreaming together, and building a bond around something they both genuinely loved. That same day, Brexton returned to the track at Charlotte Motor Speedway for the Cookout Summer Shootout. His first race since losing his father. He competed in the Young Lions division, finishing second after a last-lap pass. He carried the number 18 paint scheme, the iconic green his father wore for years at Joe Gibbs Racing, while the number 8 remains reserved for him at Richard Childress Racing when the time comes. He is 11 years old. He showed up anyway, because that is what the Busch family does. Their 4-year-old daughter, Lennox, recently received a cart for her 4th birthday. Kyle's competitive spirit did not end on May 21st. It is being carried forward by 2 children who adored their father and a mother who made him a promise she fully intends to keep. Then, on June 16th, Samantha shared something even more intimate. After Kyle's death, his sandals remained untouched in their bathroom, exactly where he had left them. On her hardest night of grief, unable to sleep, she walked into that bathroom. And there, shining directly across Kyle's sandals, was a rainbow. That single detail, a wife who cannot bring herself to move her husband's shoes, reveals the deeply spiritual, quiet, and loving man the public rarely saw. Stewart himself later reflected on witnessing this transformation, saying that's a side of Kyle Busch that most people didn't get the luxury to see. A man who grew from rough edges into a devoted father and family man, right in front of those who were close enough to notice. Now pull back and look at the full picture. Because this is where everything Tony Stewart said and everything Samantha Busch has shared converges into one clear and undeniable truth. Strip away Stewart's blunt language, and his argument aligns perfectly with Samantha's actions. There were always 2 Kyles. Kyle 1 was the aggressive, polarizing, rowdy TV villain, easy to criticize, easy to dismiss, and built for highlights that framed him as the man you were supposed to root against. Kyle 2 was the devoted husband, the hands-on father, the loyal teammate who pushed the people around him to be better, simply by refusing to accept anything less than excellence for himself. The tragedy is not only that Kyle Busch passed away at 41. The tragedy, as Stewart points out, is that the world only mourned Kyle 1, while his family is now fighting every single day to honor Kyle 2. Samantha said it best, the person who should be standing beside us isn't there, but it's also where we feel closest to him, surrounded by the memories, the people, and the dreams he helped build. So we race on. Stewart's message, beneath the anger, beneath the language that made headlines, is simply that we should have been racing on with the real Kyle Busch while he was still here to know it. This channel is just getting started, and stories like this one are exactly what we are building toward. If you want to be part of that journey and help reach 2,000 subscribers, liking this video and subscribing genuinely makes a difference. Every single subscriber counts, and your support means everything at this stage. Now, here is the question worth sitting with. Do you think Tony Stewart owes NASCAR fans an apology for his harsh words? Or do you think he made a valid point about how we treat polarizing athletes before it is too late? Drop your honest thoughts in the comments below. This is exactly the kind of conversation that matters, and this is exactly the place to have it.